Adult types, one more time. One more time. Y'all ready? Go to Luke 9. Go to Luke 9. We got to go to Luke 9. Come on. Bring it on in here. Bring it on in here. There we go. All right. Luke 9. Y'all ready? There's always a teaching moment. Megan, come on now. You know better than that. Here we go. Luke 9. Luke 9 in verse 51, it says what? And Jesus set his face resolutely. All right. Some of your translations don't have that word. All right. Some of you say determined to go. No. That's so weak, right? All right. Luke was a doctor. He used anatomy. He used figurative. He heard stories from eyewitnesses that said the guy's face changed. He was just doing his thing, and then all of a sudden it was like this moment, and his face changed. His face became resolute. He was going to Jerusalem. And we've asked this question 26 times now, all right? Why was he going to Jerusalem? To die. For who? For me and you. Why? Because we desperately needed that work of atonement. We desperately needed someone to step into our place, that we might have his righteousness, so that we might spend eternity with a holy God, so that we would not be separated from that holy God. And so this is the last week of this sort of series. All the Gospels tends to merge back. Here's what we're going to do, though. We're going to keep going in the story of Luke. And I want to tell the story of the Passion Week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Sunday, from Luke and Luke only. All right? We're not going to try and sync together everything. I want you to hear it from Luke's perspective, because Luke never met Christ. All right? We don't pick up Luke until chapter 16 of Acts on the second missionary journey. He never knew Jesus. He catches up later, probably somewhere in the early 50s. All right? Christ's crucified in 33. We pick him up early 50s. And he is going to write a gospel for the people that he and Paul are ministering to, not the people in Jerusalem. So it's a very different perspective. He's writing to a Greek audience. So we'll go through the Passion Week and read it from Luke, so we pick up that Greek understanding, not so much the Jewish is what you get in Matthew and Mark and in John. Okay? Everybody cool with that? But we have what I call the last three. The last three people, just sort of random people that Jesus encounters on his way to Jerusalem. All right? The first one was the rich young ruler. All right? And then we get Bartimaeus on the outskirts of Jericho. And then we come into the city of Jericho and we pick up Zacchaeus. All right? So come over here to Luke 19 and let's go from here. We good? Luke 19:1. He entered Jericho and was passing through. Now we know Jericho, right? Jericho, because the walls came tumbling down, okay? And it was the first city that the Israelites came into after they crossed what? They crossed the Jordan, all right? The first city they come to is the city of Jericho. And this is where, again, the walls came tumbling down. So it's literally Jesus is right there on the edge of the Jordan, okay? That's going to be important here in just a second. But he entered Jericho and was passing through, okay? He didn't plan on camping out. He was passing through. He was going through toward Jerusalem. Thank you. Okay, that was an easy one. I thought y'all would get that one. All right, y'all got to wake up on me here. All right, heading toward Jerusalem. Why? To die for us. All right, but why did he go through Jericho? If you look at a map, no one would go, well, the way to get from somewhere to Jerusalem is to go through Jericho. All right, because what happened to the guy that got beat up with the Good Samaritans? All right, is that the path you want to take? The road from Jerusalem to Jericho? Is that a good highway? All right, Ashley went to pick up Caden last night in Tyler, and I was like, well, you could go to Shreveport and just take interstate all the way. And she's like, nah, that's too long. All right, Jericho to Jerusalem is not interstate, okay? It's a rough way to go. So why in the world would Jesus go that way? All right, that's a question I want you to keep in your mind. Why is he going through Jericho? All right, and it may be a better question, not so much the why, but the who. And this is what I want you to think about today. Who is this person? Because there is this inseparable nature between the mission and the missionary. You see, Jesus had the why I'm going through here, but I want you to think through the who. Because I don't think Jesus came with this sort of locked-in mission of I'm going to the cross and that's it, and I'm not talking to anybody, I'm not interacting with anybody. Because what do we see in the life of Jesus? Does he ever interact with anyone? Does his compassion, does it ever say that Jesus' compassion was stirred up? Yes, all the time. So I don't want, and I want you to hear me, I don't want you to separate the why of the cross from the who of all that he interacted with. He wasn't just this locked in, going there, doing that, getting out of here, done. There was a who to this thing, right? And who was this? Verse 2. There was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Okay? Now, you got to notice this because most people don't pick up on this. It doesn't just say he was a tax collector. He was the arch tax collector. Okay? That's literally the Greek on this, is the archon. All right? He's the first. All right? In high school, you had the arch rival, right? In comic books, you had the arch enemy. All right? This is the number one. He was the main guy. Okay? Now, what city was he in again? Jericho, which is right next to what river? The Jordan River. Now, here's what I'm thinking, and I want you to kind of jump in the story with me, because if you're going to study the Bible, you got to jump into the story. You cannot read it from a distance and just lock in on one little details. You got to sit around and look around the room with this thing, like I say. All right? Now, at some point, John the Baptist was doing his ministry, probably about 3 years before this. All right? And he was ministering in and around what river? The Jordan River. All right? And he's speaking to people. Okay? Now, hold your place here. Come over here to Luke 3, because I want you to see these details so that you become students and not just hearers only. In Luke 3, John the Baptist is teaching. He's teaching in the vicinity of the Jordan, preaching a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. And as he's preaching, he says, produce fruit consistent with your repentance. All right? So you say this, you claim this, now live like it and produce fruit like it. There should be some evidence of this. All right? And in verse 12, it says tax collectors came to him also to be baptized, and they asked, "Teacher, what should we do?" He's going, if we're supposed to produce fruit consistent with repentance, what should we do? All right? And he answers the tax collector in 13. He told them, don't collect any more than what you have been authorized. Now, for a tax collector, how do they make their money? They've been authorized to collect taxes on behalf of Rome, all right? So if they go to the people and collect what they have been authorized, they take that authorization and they do what with that money? Take it and give it to Rome. Now, how do they make their money? They take what they have been authorized and then go, well, there is a 10% surtax on the charge, and then there is this fee. It's kind of like going to buying a plane ticket. Anybody ever bought a plane ticket? Yeah, it's $39.99. $4,000 in taxes and fees, though, okay? Tax collector, okay? I used to joke with my dad before he died. He left the ministry and became a tax collector. Literally, a tax collector for Leon County, Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. He became a tax collector. I'm like, Dad, I mean, how bad is this that you're doing this? Don't you see it's in the Bible, okay? But I would give him a hard time about this. But this is how they made their money, all right? Now, how does the chief tax collector make his money? He's not sitting in the booth, is he? No. All right? You go visit Scott at his office. Scott ain't out there selling cars. All right? Scott's sitting in the office putting out fires. All right? Everybody else is selling cars. And Scott's just sitting there reaping all the rewards of everybody working so hard. Right, Scott? Camille, is that how it worked at the office? No. I know. Scott's got his hands in everything. You go to Johnson Ford. Scott's just running around constantly. All right? But how does the chief tax collector make his money? The guy's working for him. Doing what? Just collecting what they're authorized? Now, eventually, 3 years later, this Zacchaeus guy is going, that guy messed with all of my income. And some of my guys quit on me. And there's a history to this thing. And so I want you to see the story from Zacchaeus' view, that he is this chief tax collector. And his money comes from the people taking more than they're authorized. And this John the Baptist guy is telling him, don't do that. If you want to produce fruit consistent with repentance, stop doing that. So what happens to Zacchaeus and his income? You see how it starts to dry up? And maybe some of his guys start to quit like Matthew did when Jesus called him away. All right, so we have that dynamic. I want you to keep that in mind as we do this, okay? Now, keep going back to the text. Sorry, I didn't mean to bail on you too quick on that. Verse 3. I just want you to see that in the text so you understand there's a history here. That Zacchaeus didn't just, hey, some Jesus guy walked in. Verse 3 says this: he was trying or seeking to see who Jesus was or is. All right? He wasn't just trying to see Jesus. He didn't know who Jesus was. All right? He wasn't familiar with Jesus. He knew something about Jesus because John the Baptist was earlier. There was some history there again. Okay? And he wanted to see, who is this guy? I'm hearing all these stories. I'm hearing all this stuff. And I want to see who Jesus is. Not just get my eyes on him. It's not like a celebrity. I want to see the celebrity. Oh, good, I saw him. I took a picture. Okay? No. I want some depth to this thing. So what does he do? Trying to see who Jesus was. He was not able. Why? Because of the crowd. All right? There was a big crowd there. Okay? Now, that's the first impediment. All right? It's going to the parade, and you get there too late, and everybody's filled up the parade, and you're in the back. Okay? Now, what's the second problem? We know that Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was, thank you, all right? Sad. BBS mentality all across us. Okay, yes, he was a wee little man. Okay, I always get the picture of Danny DeVito, okay? Danny DeVito is just Zacchaeus to me, okay? That's just, when I hear Zacchaeus, I think Danny DeVito, okay? And so he's this wee little man that kind of wobbles around everywhere. And he's the chief tax collector, all right? So is he young, old? He's older, okay? You see where I'm getting the Danny DeVito thing? He's a little older, he's short, he's probably cranky, okay? He steals money from people, extorts money from people for a living, all right? Or he compels other people to do it for him, which means he's a little bit wormy, okay? Did anybody read I posted the poem by John Piper, the story of Bartimaeus and Zacchaeus and their friendship, which is just a really weird thing that you've got this blind beggar that sits there and no one really talks to him except for the chief tax collector because no one talks to him. And the blind beggar doesn't even know it's the chief tax collector, and they have this beautiful friendship. So I posted it this week. Go look on my Facebook. You can see it, okay? So he was trying to see Jesus. He's not able because of the crowd, since he was a short man. Mikros, all right? He was micro, okay? He was a small man, okay? Now, should he be discouraged at this point? Think about this. Jesus is coming through your town. I want to see who this Jesus is. He gets there a little late. The crowd, the streets are lined. Jesus and his disciples are kind of walking through. He walks up and he realizes, there is no way I'm going to see him. I'm short, not to mention the fact that everybody hates me, all right? I don't do crowds real well because I may get pummeled because I'm short. I can't see because I'm short. Never mind, I'll go home. How many of you would go there? How many of you would walk up to that and go, oh well. Why doesn't he? Why doesn't Zacchaeus walk into this environment and go, never mind? Because he has this felt need that he has to deal with. And every single one of us has this felt need in our life. It's a need for peace with God. And you can quiet it and quelch it and silence it and ignore it and do everything you can to try and take it away. But there is something in the core of our being that desires peace with God. I never forget when Stephen Baldwin, one of the Baldwin brothers, when he first got saved, he encountered somebody just in passing in Hollywood somewhere. And they kind of jokingly or mockingly asked him, they said, how's that Christianity thing working out for you? And Stephen said, you know what? For the first time in my life, I have peace with God. He said he got on the elevator, just got out of there, because he knew the guy was sort of mocking him. He said the guy called him 2 weeks later. He says, you have ruined my life. He says, for 2 weeks now, I've been asking myself, do I have peace with God? And you have ruined my life because that's all I can think about. You've got to tell me, how did you find peace with God? Because that is the great need of my life. And I'm telling you this, every single one of us has that great felt need. The only question is, how will you silence it? How will you ignore it? Or will you chase after it? Because Zacchaeus doesn't walk up and go, never mind, it wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't really need to see Jesus. You know, it's no big deal. No. He walks up to the crowd and he goes, I got to figure out something. I got to do something. And what does he do? All right, verse 4. So running ahead. That's one problem, all right? Because how many chief tax collectors run down the street to get in a position to be in front of the crowd so you can see? Imagine if the mayor of our town, if we're at a parade and you see him booking down the street, all right? Taking off his jacket, running down the street. How many of you would go, well, that's normal. That happens all the time, all right? That's weird, isn't it? A man of this stature doesn't run, especially in this society. And not only does he run down the street, running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree. Give me the picture of the actual tree that Zacchaeus climbed up, right? Y'all with me? This is the actual tree. I'm not sure which limb. I'm sure if you ask a tour guide, he will tell you. If you go to Jericho, he will say, this is the very limb that Zacchaeus was hanging off of, okay? Now, this is a tree. It is on a main road in Jericho. Sorry about, I'm going to use my tree here in a second. There is a main road there that's going down that way, so the people say, well, this must have been the tree, all right? But here, again, jump in the story. There's a parade. Jesus is going through town. All of a sudden, the chief tax collector, the guy you hate, Danny DeVito, is running down the street, and all of a sudden he starts to climb a tree. Jamie, when's the last time you climbed a tree? Yeah, it's been a while. All right, me too. I'm with you. All right. It's been a while. Jim, you climbed a tree lately? Any? Have you really? That's sad. You got young kids, though. You can do that. All right. Now, yeah, people our age don't climb trees anymore. We don't have to, okay? All right? I used to when I was a kid. But why in the world is this dignified chief tax collector working for the Romans in the beautiful, amazing metropolitan city of Jericho? Why in the world is he climbing up a tree? What's his need? What's his heart's felt need? And he said, I know, I'll get ahead. And he's plotting it out, and he climbs up a tree. Why? Because Jesus was about to do what? Pass by there, okay? You can kill off the tree, all right? So running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. Now, here's my question. Who plotted to see who in this moment? See, in Zacchaeus' mind, he's thinking, all right, he's heading this way. There's a tree. Runs up, climbs up. At the same time, I think there's a Christ who's sitting there going, there's a man named Zacchaeus that I want to encounter. And he's running. He's going to climb up in that tree. I'm going to walk that way. You see, a lot of times we give Zacchaeus all the credit. He goes and he climbs up the tree. Do we ever give Jesus credit for going, hey, there's the tree. There's Zacchaeus. I'll walk that way. I won't go this way. Because what's our inclination a lot of times? When we see somebody that's, I'm not real comfortable with him. He's a sinful person. He's this, he's that. He's got a reputation. I don't want to be around those people, you know. So I see him running to climb that tree. What would a good Jewish young man do at this point? Would he go this way or would he go this way? You see, who figured out how to meet Jesus? Did Zacchaeus figure it out, or did Jesus go, I see him going. I see where he's going. I know where he's going. We're going to go right by this. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be an incredible moment where I get to encounter this person who is seeking after me. When Jesus came to the place. So he comes to the place where creator meets creature. This moment where the creator meets the creature. And there's reconciliation. What's your place? If you had to name the place where you encountered the Almighty God in all of his glory and all of his presence, where would that be? Do you have that place in your mind? Do you have that place where you said, this is where everything changed for me? This was the moment. This was the place. Mine was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm sitting in the balcony. I'm at a basketball camp, Tennessee Temple University. And some guy spoke from the stage, and he said, the same grace that saves that bum out of Skid Row saved you, the perfect little church kid whose dad's on staff, saved you in the same way. And you needed that grace as much as anything. Blew my mind. I could still see that was my place. That was the trajectory moment where I said, oh my goodness, I'm not better than everyone else. I'm not the staff kid that just doesn't need it. No, I'm the one who desperately needs the saving grace of Christ. Right there. What was your place? When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus. Now, had they met before? How in the world does he know his name? Do you ever think God knows your name? And not only does God know your real name, but he also has a nickname for you probably. Because how many of the disciples had nicknames? Just about all of them. All right? Caden wrote me, I think he wrote me a while back, and he said, why didn't you ever tell me about Thomas with his nickname, the twin? I'm like, I probably told you about 10 times that story. He's like, well, it never registered. But not only does he know your name, he probably has a nickname for you. He's probably waiting, trying to plot out so that he can meet you in that place. Zacchaeus, hurry, come down, because today I must stay at your house. When he said stay at your house, anybody have a different word for there? For stay? Anybody have remain, abide? It's the Greek word meno, M-E-N-O. All right? It means to abide. It means to stay. It means to spend the night at your house. Okay? Now, here's the thing in Jewish culture. You could probably have coffee with somebody, not too big of a deal. Okay? That's a definite commitment. All right? If you have a meal with somebody, whoa, that's serious. Okay? That's like you want to engage in a relationship with that person. Okay? This is a deep friendship if you're having a meal with somebody. Okay? But if you want to stay at someone's house, all right? Anybody ever had a house guest before? Do you let just anybody come and stay at your house? Okay? Jesus, I need to spend the night at your house. That's way beyond having a meal. And what's everybody around thinking? All right? Because Danny DeVito's up in the tree. All right? And Jesus looks up and goes, hey, I'm going to spend the night at your house. Everybody heard this. This great prophet, this great teacher is talking to the chief tax collector of Jericho, the one that everybody else in town avoids. Jesus goes to him and says, I'm going to abide at your house. I must. It's emphatic. I must do this. And what happens in everybody's mind that hears this? Look at the next words. So quickly he came down and welcomed him joyfully, and all who saw it began to complain. It's the Greek word gongusmos. It's ugly as it sounds. They began to grumble. Gongusmos. He's gone to lodge with a sinful man. This word lodge, it literally means to unwind. You ever do that? You come home and you're like, I just want to sit here and unwind for a little bit. Literally, that's what the phrase is, all right? How many of people reading this go, there's the hero of the story right there. They warned him off about spending time with a sinful tax collector. Do not be unequally yoked, Jesus. Run away, run away. Who's calling them the hero of the story? What if you had a Bible that didn't have the story of Zacchaeus in it? That's what you would have if these people were deemed to be the heroes. Now, I want to tread very, very carefully here because I want to try and thread the needle. Because what in the world was Jesus thinking? What in the world was he thinking? In Galatians 6:1, it says, church, when you encounter someone who is caught up in wrongdoing, and you can look this up, Galatians 6:1, I just don't have time to turn there. Galatians 6:1, you encounter someone who is caught up in wrongdoing, you are to restore that person. Not see them crawling up in the tree and go, I better stay over here because I don't want to be unequally yoked with someone who's caught up in wrongdoing. No, what does Paul beg the Galatian church to do? Go to them, not avoid them. Your job is to restore them. Now, he makes a caveat, and it's absolutely crucial that you understand this. He says, watching out for yourself, because you are a sinful person and don't think you can handle the temptation all on your own. All right? He doesn't say just go in full bore, I'm just going. I remember we had a kid in one of our ministries. What a train wreck. This kid just came from a lost, broken home. He was just a lost, broken kid, just kind of got radically saved. And this family in our youth group just was a little too bold with this. And they said, he's gotten kicked out of his house. Let's just invite him into our house and he can live with us. Well, their marriage was not good. They had one daughter that was just on the verge of wild, crazy. And then they had the perfect little child that wasn't so perfect. Within a year, dad had an affair. Mom and dad got divorced. The perfect little child now began to live with her girlfriend, shall we say. And oddly, the wild girl kind of saw all this and became a better Christian in the long run, which is kind of a weird dynamic to the whole thing. But what did? They opened up their house and they jumped in and they did get unequally yoked. And it destroyed their whole family. I had another kid in our ministry. I think I was teaching school. This couple, strong Christian girl, strong Christian family, her boyfriend, not so strong, got kicked out of his house. And they thought, I have a brilliant idea. Let's invite the boyfriend to live with us in our house. She got pregnant. Who knew? Who could see that coming? All right, you see what I'm saying? This is not this just, I'm just going to abandon myself and go into this thing. No, you have, and that's why Paul puts that caveat in there. You've got to be careful. You've got to watch yourself so that you don't get overwhelmed. Court is in a fraternity at college, all right? I encouraged him to be in it. Some of you are thinking, my pastor encouraged his son to be in a fraternity. All right? I encourage Caden to be in one. All right? You know why? Because I know what the mission field is. And I know if Caden camps out at the BCM or the BSU or whatever you called it, and he's surrounded by Christians his entire 3 or 4 years at A&M, he won't have any effect for the kingdom. So I encourage Court to go into, and now after Court's been through this experience like you talked about last week, he's been saying, Dad, I can't wait to get back to the SIGEP house because I know my mission field now. I know I have a mission field. And see, he's not just thinking, why am I going to school? He's thinking, who am I going to school for? Who is my mission field? And every single one of us should have that understanding and mentality when we go to work, when we go to school, when we do all of these things, because this is Jesus' mentality. It's not just the what, it's the who, all right? So all of these people are doing this. And here's the thing. I want to raise my kids, all 3 of them, with the inclination of Hosea, not the inclination of Jonah. Because the inclination of Hosea was to do what? Run to Gomer, to go rescue Gomer, the one who had been the prostitute, the one who had left him, the one who had cheated, the one who had done all this. I want my kids to run to that, not be Jonah and go, well, you know, those Assyrians are really wicked people, and I wouldn't want to be a part of that. And here's what scares me in parenting these days. When we try and shelter our kids so much and keep them away from the world, what we're teaching them is be like Jonah. Now, we don't say that, of course, because we know Jonah was a bad guy, all right? We don't say that, but we say, oh, just stay away from the bad people. Stay away from the bad people. And we end up raising Jonahs. And we don't tell them, look out for people who need the love of Christ. And now we're raising Hoseas. It's a big difference there. But I tried to thread the needle there. Y'all with me? Did I thread it okay? David, okay? Okay, all right. Just be careful. Why? Because Jesus, I want you to see this. Where am I? James. Go to James 5. I got time for this. The last verses of James. James, better known as Lessons My Big Brother Taught Me About God. You'll get that in a second. James is the brother of Jesus, the little brother of Jesus. And Jesus taught him all these things about God. I love this because this is spot on. My brothers, the last verse 19, 5:19. My brothers, if any among you strays from the truth. All right? You got anybody in mind like that? Who strayed from the truth? And someone, mama's been praying, please come into his life. Please be in her life. Someone that somebody's been begging God for turns him back. Let that person know that whoever turns a sinner from the error or the wandering of his way will save his soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. So when Jesus comes along and sees Zacchaeus climbing up in the tree, he doesn't go, I better go over here because I don't want to be unequally yoked. He says, I want to go right there because this is one who needs to be saved. His soul needs to be saved. I'm going back to the text, all right? But Zacchaeus stood there. I think Zacchaeus overheard all this. I think he overheard all this, and he heard all the naysaying and all the grumbling and complaining. He knew what they were saying, and he takes his stand, and he says, Lord, look, I'll give half my possessions to the poor, Lord, and if I've extorted anything from anyone, any chance of that had happened? Yes, all right. I'll pay back 4 times as much. And Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house. Why? Because he said he'd give away his stuff? James says this, faith without works is dead. What did Jesus see? Jesus saw the works. And the works stemmed from what? The faith that he had. That's why salvation came. Because that faith and salvation work together. So Jesus told him, because he too is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man has come to seek Did he? He could have avoided him. He could have done all this. He came to seek and save those who are perishing. What does your text say? Is the lost? Yeah, it's the word apolumai. It means perishing, eternally perishing. Jesus says, there's a guy in a tree who's going to be eternally separated from my Father. And I have 2 legs, and I can walk over there, and I can be in his life. Are you a Christian? Careful. Because a lot of us think, well, Christian means I believe something. I beg to differ. I believe a Christian is somebody who does something, not somebody who cognitively understands something. If Jesus says, my goal, my desire, my ambition in life is to seek and to save that guy, are you a Christian? Are you a Christian? Or are you somebody who's sitting at the bus stop waiting to go to heaven? Those are 2 very different things. Are you a Christian? Meaning, are you one who has come, who understands that the breath you just took has empowered you, given you the ability and the strength to seek and to save those who are perishing? You see, if we don't have this mentality, we're going to be a bunch of people who show up in a building and are nice. That's not who Jesus was. If we're going to call ourselves Christians, we have to be about the work of Christ. Which is why he keeps rolling. Look at this as they were listening to this. Verse 11. As they were listening to this, he went on to tell a parable because he was near Jerusalem and they thought the kingdom of heaven was just going to poof, appear, right? When? At the triumphal entry, right? Weren't they waiting on that? His disciples said that. The Emmaus boys said that. We thought he was going to poof and everything. And she's like, no. You guys don't understand how this is going to work. Here's how it's going to work. He said to them, a nobleman traveled to a far country to receive for himself authority to be king and then return. Jesus is going to ascend into heaven, receive the authority to be the king, and then he's going to come back. Amen? That's a good day, right? So he is here. He's going to go away. He's going to come back. Now, in the meantime, what's he going to do? He called 10 of his slaves, gave them 10 minas, all right? It's about 3 years of wages. He's going to divide up these wages and told them, engage in business until I come back. So the nobleman who is here, he's going to leave. Has Jesus left? Yes. Is he going to come back? In the meantime, he's going to give his slaves the resources to conduct business, expecting them to do what? Engage in business. One of them takes his mina, produces 10 more. The master, when he comes back, says, well done, good and faithful servant. You'll be over 10 cities. The next one goes, hey, mine made 5. You get 5 cities. And then there's one that said, look, here's the mina. I put it in a handkerchief and buried it because I knew you were a hard man. And Jesus says, you wicked, evil slave. You had the gospel in your hands and you shared it with no one. No one. You hid it away. Are you a Christian? Start looking for the trees, folks. Start looking for any moment you can, because your Savior is waiting to say, well done, good and faithful servant. You didn't avoid the sinner. You didn't avoid the one caught up in wrongdoing. You didn't avoid the one wandering away from the truth. You sought them out. You prayed for them. You begged for them. In any encounter you could, you were right there with them. That is what a Christian will do until Christ comes back. Father, please, please don't ever let us think that our role here is to sit here until we get to go to heaven. What a wasted life, Father. Father, I pray that you would drive from us this desire to go to heaven all by ourselves. Give us the desire to go to heaven with as many people as we can find. Give us eyes and give us the heart to seek and save those who are perishing. May we give our lives to this effort so that we can be just like you and love people like you love them.